The notification hit my inbox like a slap across the face. No warning, just pain. Picture this. It's Tuesday morning in Maple Ridge Legacy, one of those suburbs just outside Atlanta where the grass is so perfect you start thinking someone out there is measuring every blade with a damn laser pointer. The air's got that fake lavender smell from all the laundry rooms venting out at once, and here comes my fate delivered in a crisp ivory envelope that probably cost more than my weekly grocery bill. It tells me in the politest legalese that my existence has officially become a $10,000 problem for the neighborhood. Let's rewind a sec, Brenda Montgomery. There's a name you want to say with your teeth clenched. Brenda is the HOA president, but president doesn't do her justice. Think more dictator, but with better highlights and a closet full of power suits. She clacks up my driveway, those designer heels stabbing into my concrete like she's claiming the land. And she gives me this look, slides her gaze over my wheelchair like she's shopping for guilt at a clearance rack. Maybe you should have thought twice before buying here, Caleb, she says, voice all honey and arsenic. This isn't an assisted living facility. That ramp of yours, it's an eyesore section 4.2. She's already snapping photos logging my violation into her little HOA app, her perfume fighting the Georgia humidity for dominance in the air. But here's the fun part, the part she never saw coming. Brenda thought I was just some sad, broken-down Navy vet scraping by on a pension, easy pickings for her crusade to protect property values for her husband's real estate cronies. She had no idea I was more than that. No clue that the guy in the wheelchair me had quietly become the shadow owner of almost half this damn neighborhood. 423 homes. 15 years of careful, silent acquisitions through Stone Foundations, LLC. My own little empire worth more than $50 million hiding in plain sight behind a bunch of shell companies. So when Brenda strutted up to my porch wagging her finger and her rules at me, she was standing on my concrete, breathing my air, threatening me over a ramp on a house I could have bought 10,000 times over if I wanted. And as she turned on her heel, her hips swinging with the confidence of someone who's never lost a fight, I felt this strange sense of calm. The same cold focus I used to get before a mission back in my Navy intelligence days. 30 years of service, one busted spine, and more secrets than the Pentagon. But hey, nobody ever expects the old guy to bite back, right? Sunset came down over Maple Ridge that night, and Brenda was still high on her victory. Little did she know she'd just declared war on the very man who owned half the battlefield. And let's be honest, I was just getting started. Not because I had some grand plan for revenge, but because I'd made a promise to a woman I loved more than anything. Sarah. 40 years married. The only person who could ever make my mind quiet down. She passed away 3 years ago, cancer, a slow, ugly thief. I still remember that hospital room, the smell of disinfectant, her vanilla lotion, the beeping machines. She squeezed my hand and whispered, "Promise me, Caleb, use what we save to help people who can't fight for themselves. Don't let the world eat them alive." And let me tell you, that promise hit harder than any IED I ever saw in the Gulf. So when my batty old uncle guy collected stocks like other people collect stamps, dropped dead, and left me $3 million right after Sarah passed, I had a choice: watch Brenda and her goons devour this neighborhood or do something about it. Sarah used to say, the quietest person in the room sees the most. So I became invisible. I let the HOA treat me like background noise while I snapped up every foreclosure, every distress sale, every home they tried to squeeze out of someone just barely hanging on. Not for power. Not for money. I kept the rent cheap for teachers, mechanics, single moms, folks on fixed incomes. Anyone Brenda would have thrown to the wolves. Meanwhile, Maple Ridge just kept growing: 1,000 homes, HOA fees higher than my mortgage, a rule book thicker than the Geneva Convention, and more landscaping trucks than actual trees. Brenda, the so-called villain of our little drama, wasn't hard to spot. Her Mercedes SUV was basically a tank with tinted windows prowling the streets for anyone foolish enough to leave their trash bins out past 6 p.m. Her husband, State Senator Clay Montgomery, had a smile like a shark and ethics to match. Brenda's specialty. Picking off the weak, the elderly, the disabled, racking up fines so high folks had no choice but to sell cheap to her husband's friends. And she always did it with this, "I'm just protecting your investment" routine. That's the trick, right? Hide the knife behind a smile. Lucia Rivera. Now here's a wild-card paralegal single mom 3 doors down. She cornered me at the mailbox one day. Voice low. It's selective enforcement, Caleb. It's illegal. But nobody's willing to say anything. She looked scared. I get it. Most people didn't even know they had rights. That's how Brenda liked it, keep everyone ignorant, keep the gravy train rolling. When I put in my ramp doctor's orders, city permitted totally above board, under the ADA, Brenda pounced like a vulture. Ignored her own illegal gazebo, by the way, but rules are only for the powerless. The board meeting where they fined me. Oh, that was pure theater. Fluorescent lights, bad coffee. Everyone too scared to make eye contact. The vote was 4-1. Only Lucia dared say no, her hand trembling as she did it. Maybe you should have thought twice before buying here, old man Brenda said again. My neighbors shifted in their chairs, silent, cowed. You ever hear the sound of courage dying? It sounds like folding chairs creaking in a room full of good people who are too scared to stand up. I didn't fight. Not then. Just wheeled myself home, played the part. But that night, I spread out deeds and maps across my kitchen table. Not bingo cards, but the blueprints of a counterattack. I made a call I hadn't made in years. Donovan, I said, voice back to that old Navy timbre. Time to activate Phase 1. Pull the stone foundation's files. All of them. He paused. He knew what this meant. It's total war, Caleb. You sure? I looked at Sarah's photo, whispered. Sometimes you burn the field to save the crop. Next day, Lucia found me in the grocery store, whispering again. She'd found evidence of bylaw violations, but said, they're too powerful. She had no idea she was paying rent to a company I owned. Irony's a hell of a thing. The crunch of gravel under my wheels was my new soundtrack. Every roll through Maple Ridge was recon now. Every house I'd bought, every person I'd shielded from a rent spike building toward this moment, teaching Brenda what real power looked like. And Brenda, man, she wasted no time. Suddenly, my mailbox was an artillery range. Violation after violation. Mailbox 2 inches too high, $250. Trash bin visible at 6:01 p.m., $500. Bird feeders, $350. Neighbors scurried past, heads down, as if HOA fines were contagious. But Brenda couldn't help herself. Her greed was her downfall. She invented a $500 architectural review fee for all modifications retroactive to my ramp and made her nephew Tyler the official inspector. The kid took more photos of my house than TMZ. Then the accident started. Landscaping crew accidentally sprayed weed killer on Sarah's rose bushes. Next day, the utility company cut my fiber line during a telehealth appointment. Then my ramp turned into a water slide thanks to a busted sprinkler. Brenda just shrugged, gave some speech about infrastructure issues. I recognized the tactics. Sleep deprivation, financial pressure, isolation straight out of an enemy playbook. Only difference. My enemy wore Lululemon. Here's what Brenda missed, what all bullies miss. The quietest people are the ones you should watch. While Tyler was photographing my house, I was documenting every one of their violations. Brenda's fence 6 inches over the property line, treasurer's illegal deck, secretary's business sign unpermitted. Lucia spotted what I was doing and whispered, "You're building a case for selective enforcement." Damn right I was. And then the twist, Lucia's son gets slapped with a $2,000 fine for a basketball hoop that had been approved years ago. Brenda had started targeting anyone who showed me support. Lucia overheard my late-night call, "Document the retaliation, Donovan." Perfect for the federal civil rights complaint. She paled. Federal. What was I planning? By week 3, my fines had hit $18,500. Brenda escalated adult protective services, showed up for a tip about my mental health. I aced the inspection, but the humiliation was the point. Brenda hand-delivered my foreclosure notice, posing for photos like she'd just captured a war criminal. But as she leaned in, hissing, "Pay up or get out, old man," I felt a strange satisfaction. Checkmate was coming. The news got wind, of course, thanks to Brenda. And suddenly I was the problem. Channel 2, Action News. Local papers. Everyone spun it as veteran refuses to follow rules. The attacks got nastier. A tree service accidentally dropped a branch on my truck. Pest control hit my air intake. Security patrol cars idled outside my house at all hours. But Lucia, she went digging. Turns out Senator Clay had funneled almost $1 million in no-bid city contracts to his family's companies right through the HOA. I looked at her and said, "Sarah always told me follow the money." Donovan wasn't just my property lawyer, he was working with the FBI. Then Brenda went too far. Lucia's car nearly lost a wheel, loosened lug nuts. 5 more miles and she'd have been dead. And when Mrs. Ingwin, 84, got a $5,000 fine for her garden, broke down crying in her driveway, it broke something in the neighborhood. 12 households met secretly, everyone sharing horror stories. Sergeant Miller, a retired Marine, told us they'd destroyed his son's memorial tree. Tomorrow morning I told them we file federal civil rights charges. This isn't just an HOA anymore, it's a criminal enterprise. Brenda, riding high, called an emergency board meeting. Media everywhere, her loyalists packed in. She strutted up their slideshow ready, spinning charts about community standards while painting me as the villain. But the room was different. Electric, ready to blow. Lucia stood up, voice shaking but determined, folder in hand. Mrs. Montgomery, I have concerns about selective enforcement and financial irregularities. According to city records, your husband approved nearly $1 million in contracts to your family. Meanwhile, board members with identical violations never got cited. Brenda's face went from smug to panic in a heartbeat. She tried to brush it off. That's speculation. But then I rolled up to the mic. The room went dead silent. 3 years ago, my wife asked me to help people who couldn't help themselves. I said, so I did. Quietly bought 423 properties through Stone Foundations. That's 49.9% of Maple Ridge, almost a majority. You could feel the collective gasp. Brenda's face went ghost white. While you were terrorizing the vulnerable, I was documenting it all for federal prosecutors. Not for revenge, for justice. She bolted for the exit, but a man in a navy suit was waiting. Brenda Montgomery, he announced, badge out. You're under arrest for racketeering, conspiracy, civil rights violations, and domestic terrorism. The click of handcuffs echoed in the hall. Clay tried to run and went face first into the carpet, FBI on his heels. Agent Miller from the Organized Crime Division stood up. Mr. Stone here contacted us 18 months ago. His evidence has built the most comprehensive RICO case against HOA corruption in federal history. The next morning, the feds rolled in, black SUVs everywhere, dawn breaking over a neighborhood finally breathing again. Turned out Brenda kept a Montgomery extraction database, a spreadsheet ranking every family by vulnerability. I was target 1, Mrs. Ingwin was 3, Sergeant Miller 7. Federal asset seizure froze $4 million. Brenda and her cronies lost it all. The trial was a circus. Attorney General Garland called them domestic terrorists. I testified and told the jury they thought they were destroying one disabled veteran. They never realized they were creating evidence. 47 minutes later, guilty on all counts. Life, no parole. 2 years on Maple Ridge is different. The Roses, Sarah loved, are back. Kids play in the streets. Lucia runs a foundation to help other neighborhoods fight back. Sergeant Miller and I fish every Saturday. And I sit on my porch, feel the Georgia sun, and finally, the world is quiet again. Sarah was right, the quietest person in the room really does see the most. But here's the kicker: as I watch the news and see other HOAs tightening their grip, I wonder, where's the line between community management and organized crime? And if they came for your neighborhood, would you have the guts to burn it all down to save it? So what about you? Where do you draw the line between rules and justice, power and abuse? Drop your thoughts below. Ever seen karma work this fast? Ever taken on the powers that be? I want to hear your story. And hey, if you liked this story, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Who knows, next time it might be your neighborhood I'm talking about.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.